Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ikria Tracy and this is my testimony that I've been wanting to put out for a long time. I'm a little nervous. I just have been feeling it on my heart to put this out there. I actually filmed this testimony maybe like a couple years ago, and I recorded it and I was like so proud of myself. I was like, yes, I can put it out now. And I play it back and it was completely like the audio was completely out, and I just got so discouraged, and I just never went back to it. So this is technically my first attempt at doing it again since that situation. And yeah, I'm not gonna let the devil stop me from doing what the Lord's calling me to do. I really think testimonies are so important, and a testimony is ultimately what brought me back to Christ. So they're super important. And so I've been watching a lot of testimonies lately, and a lot have resonated with me. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I'm not alone in what I went through and stuff. So I just feel the calling from God to just put my testimony out there, and whoever it's gonna help, it will help, and that's up to God to do. But yeah, I just want to be obedient and put it out there. I'm gonna be breaking up my testimony in two parts because I don't want the video to be extra long. So this part of the testimony will just be about overcoming my porn addiction and like the lesbianism and that type of stuff. And then in another video I'll speak about Christianity and me falling away from Christianity and getting into New Age and African spirituality and those things and coming back to Christ. So I just want this video just to be focused on the sexual perversion part, and get into something else or the rest of the testimony later on. So yeah, let's begin. Grew up in Canada, in Montreal specifically, or I was born in Montreal, Quebec, but then was technically raised and brought up in like Ontario, Toronto, GTA area. My parents met in Montreal, and my father already had two kids, but they lived in Ghana, and then my mom had a son when they met. And so when my parents got together, they had my oldest sister, and then they had me, and then later down the line they had 3 more kids. So in total, my parents together had 5 kids. Yeah, so like I said, born in Montreal, and then maybe when I was 3, we moved to Toronto. So when we moved to Toronto was when all of this stuff happened to me, right? From what I remember, there was a night where, and I think maybe I was like 4 or 5 at this point. I remember just sleeping and being woken up by a family member, and I was told that, oh, there's like a tape, like I found a tape and I want to see what's on the tape, so like let's go see what's on the tape. Everyone was sleeping. Like I said, I was woken up in the middle of the night and taken to the living room, and they put the VCR in the tape player, I guess, or the VCR player, and porn was on the screen. So what this person did was they took a blanket and put it over the television, so that if someone was walking into the living room, they wouldn't see what was on the TV, because we had like the covers over us and the television screen, if that makes sense. Yeah, so we're watching this video, it's porn. I just remember the first thing, I'll never forget this, like the first thing that I said was, are they robots? Like I was so confused. It just goes to show how innocent my mind was. Was just shocked. I was shocked, confused, didn't know how to make up what I was watching, didn't know what to make of it. I was just confused. there were different scenes, but I specifically remember like a lesbian scene. I guess that was the night that my innocence was technically like robbed, because after this, I just remember the addiction just, yeah. It was like I was aware of my body parts, I guess. Like a veil was lifted, something was just taken off of my eyes, and you know, I was now having these thoughts and, you know, looking at myself down there and like wanting to do the things that I saw on the videos. That was the first and last time that this family member showed me anything of that nature. I just remember just having sexual thoughts from that point on. Pornography is such a dangerous thing. I think people underestimate how destructive it can be to children, especially. And yeah, it just led me down a path that I'm about to get into. So there was this girl who lived in our building. She was around I think she was either my age or a year older than me. And at the time, my grandma was living with us, and she just came from Ghana. And I guess, you know, for her to make some money on the side, I guess my mom and her agreed to that they would babysit this girl, let's call her Jane, to babysit Jane, I think after school. Yeah, so I think she went to a separate school from us, and so when school was over, she would come to our house while her parents were still working. I don't remember when this happened. I don't know if I was still 5 but I know I was young, maybe like 6 or 7. Okay, so there's this podcast that I was watching recently, and a woman who was molested, she was talking about just how after she was raped, it was as if there was like a spiritual like scent on her, where she was attracting people who would abuse her, or she was attracting other people who have been molested. And so I feel like that's kind of what was going on. There was like spiritually, there was like a scent that was on myself and that was on her, Jane, that attracted us to each other, because there was no conversation that was had from my memory of us saying, oh, like I watched this thing before, or, you know, like I've done this thing before, so let's do it together. There was nothing like that. It was just, from what I remember, it was just like, meet me in the bathroom. I'm gonna go to the bathroom, you go to the bathroom. And it's like, as soon as we get to the bathroom, we start doing things. Like, we start kissing, we start touching, we start like, just crazy things that I don't want to relive. But just for the sake of the testimony, I guess, yeah, though a lot of, like, we're doing sexual things, like oral sex and things to each other at this really young age. Yeah, so that's what was happening. And obviously we were hiding it from my grandma, hiding it from my other siblings. If it was in the bathroom, we would go into the closet. And there was actually a time where my grandma caught us in the closet. She didn't see us doing anything, but like the fact that we're in the closet, she was like, what's going on? And like, I remember her like giving me a spanking. I don't know if she suspected something, I have no idea, but yeah. So the reason why I'm saying this whole thing about the scent is that eventually she told, this Jane girl eventually told my sister and I that she was being molested by her cousins, like her older cousins. So even though I wasn't molested, it was like there was still a spirit of perversion over me because I was exposed to pornography. And so I'm sure she was too, but she was also like being molested by her cousin. So that is what, you know, had us doing things together. So yeah, that's what happened when we were living in our apartment in Toronto. And then not long after that, we ended up moving to a town maybe like 30 minutes away, called Oakville. So we moved from Toronto. We ended up moving from Toronto to Oakville. And the spirit of perversion was still hovering over me. So I started this new school, and there was another girl at this school who also had this perverted spirit. A very similar situation to the girl that my grandma was babysitting. We didn't speak about what we had gone through to each other. It was like excuse me, it was like a spiritual thing. So there was story time. So during story times in this class that we were in, excuse me, I have like a cold. And so if I'm coughing and stuff, that's the reason. So we would have story times in our class, as I'm sure most 4th grade or 5th grade classes would have. The teacher would sit in front of the class and have a book and just would read it, and like the students would sit in front of her as she reads. So something that the girls would do is like we would give each other massages for some strange reason. I really do not know why we were doing this or why the teachers just allowed this to happen. Very strange. But yeah, you know, the girls would sit in front of each other and like massage each other's backs while the story was being read. It's just very insane when you think about it, when I think about it at least. So there was this girl named Maria, I'll call her that, and we weren't really friends like that. You know, we wouldn't hang out outside of school or stuff. Like I had my best friends, I had my friends that I would hang out with, but she wasn't really someone that I would hang out with like that. But we were cool, you know, she was in my class. There was one day where she asked if I can give her a massage. So she sits in front of me and we're like all sitting down, you know, with our legs crossed or whatever, in front of the teacher. And so she sits in front of me and I'm giving her a massage. I think prior to this day, I've given her a massage before, you know, but it was just innocent, just a massage, whatever. But then this specific day, she turned to me and she asked me to like grab her butt. And so I was like, okay, you know, like I did it because I guess maybe I wanted to do it. I don't know. I don't remember having those thoughts like of wanting to do it until she said it. So when she said it, I was like, okay, you know, it's like she was just giving me access. And so I ended up putting my hands down her pants, and I was like touching her butt or whatever, and I just remember having like this sensation of like enjoying it, like liking it, you know? Yeah, so after that first time, it kept happening. So every time we would have story times, she'd be massaging her, and it's like now she didn't have to say anything, I would just do it, right? And so there was this one day where she told me to, so she said that she was gonna ask the teacher to go to the bathroom, and that I should ask the teacher to go to the bathroom as well after her. And so I did. So she goes, and then I go to the teacher and I ask the teacher if I can go to the bathroom as well, and then I go to the bathroom. And we meet up in the stall, and we're doing basically the exact same thing that I was doing with the girl that my grandma was babysitting. You know, touching, kissing, all this disgusting stuff. Things that we should not have even known to do, you know? So she never told me that she was molested or that she was addicted to porn or anything like that. Like I said, it was like a spirit, because we did not verbally have this conversation, but it's like we both just knew that we can do these things with each other. Looking back at it now, I think that either she was being molested or she also experienced what I experienced, which was, you know, seeing pornography at a very young age. So after that, so this was in elementary school. I'm still in elementary school here, but you know, going on to middle school, I was still, I still had those like thoughts in my mind, like lesbian thoughts. I would like have dreams and like fantasies of like being with women and being with multiple women and just reenacting the things that I've seen on videos. At the same time, I still had crushes on boys and stuff, so I guess I would have been bisexual because I still had crushes on boys, but I secretly liked certain girls, you know? And I also had like, I remember in the 6th grade having like this crazy like tomboy phase where I would wear like baggy jeans and jerseys and like hats and stuff. I'm just so thankful now, like when I look back at how I was behaving and the things that I went through, I'm just so grateful that I went through it at the time that I did, because I feel like, excuse me, if I were to have had those feelings today, you know, in this generation of like LGBT and transgenderism, I probably would have fallen for that whole thing. I probably would have, you know, wanted to get surgery to remove my breasts, wanting to, you know, take hormones and all those things so I can transition into a man when I really wasn't a man. And so those are all demonic plots of the enemy, you know, to try to destroy my destiny and destroy the calling that God had on my life. Yeah, I'm just very grateful I did not grow up in this trans era. I'm just so grateful to God, so grateful to God. So anyway, so as all of this is going on, I'm, like I said, addicted to porn. I would come home and there was, I don't know if anyone remembers this. If you were up late at night as a kid and you had cable TV, and if you stayed up past midnight, you would have seen that they would have like porn come on TV, just like on cable TV. It was just there. And so there were times where I would stay up at night, late at night, just so that I could watch those channels. I would do it probably like every like once a week, I would say, on the weekends, because that was the only time, obviously, that we don't have school the next day, so I was able to stay up super late. And so, yeah, I was struggling for a long time. I didn't feel like the guilt of it. I didn't feel the shame of it when I was that young. But when I grew up, when I was like in high school, and I was doing it in high school, and then when I started masturbating, that's when the shame and, you know, that disgusting feeling that you get after you do those things started like seeping in. I think that that's ultimately what told me that it was wrong, and what told me that I did not want to do this anymore. It wasn't until university that I really wanted to stop. I didn't know how, I didn't know what I needed to do, who I needed to talk to stop, but I just knew that with everything in me, I just felt like I cannot do this anymore, I need to stop. And obviously at the time, I didn't know that it was God wanting me to stop. Like, I didn't know that it was wrong because the Bible says it was wrong, because God says it's wrong. I just felt that shame, and I guess that's where it was ultimately coming from, you know, just the truth was convicting me. After a while, the lesbian desires started to go away. I think when I got to high school, to be fair, yes, I would still watch like lesbian porn and those things, but for me to actually like have a desire for myself to be with a woman, I did not have that anymore. And so yeah, I think just one day it started with me putting blocks on like my laptops and my phones, and that's how bad I wanted to stop. I was like, hey, I need to put certain blocks, like I need to block these things off of my phone so that I can stop. Like, yeah, the addiction was a real addiction. And so I began with doing that, but then it got to a point where I was kind of like, when I would have like an urge, I was feeding my flesh so much that I would like get an urge, and I would just break through the blocks that I put on my phone and would watch porn again, you know? And so it took a lot to stop. At this point, I wasn't like, especially in university, that's actually when I fell away from Christianity. But I know that it was God who, you know, just was convicting me and putting that on my heart to stop, and that it was wrong. Ultimately, I know that it was God's hand over my life. For me to be where I am today and to, you know, be the mother that I am, the wife that I am today, I had to overcome that. I just couldn't bring it with me on this journey that God has me on. And so as hard as it was to get over that addiction, you know, because it was something that I went through as a child and have been doing constantly since I was 5 or 6, it was extremely hard. And I know that I couldn't have done it myself. It had to have been God who was pushing me. It had to have been God. Even though I didn't know it at the time, it was God who was pushing me into becoming the woman that I am today, which is a woman who's, you know, clean and free from sexual perversion, a woman who is a mother and a wife now, a woman who wants to speak out against sexual perversion, who wants to speak out against pornography, because I know, as like from experience, how detrimental it was to my life, how detrimental it was to my innocence, my childhood. And yeah, I just give God all the glory for me breaking that addiction. And I'm just thankful that I am where I am today. I'm thankful that I see the truth. I'm thankful that God has brought his truth into my life. I really do believe that a lot of people who are in that community have either been, you know, molested or introduced to pornography at a young age, because that's what I went through. But God transformed my life, and God took me out of it. God made me stop and change my ways. And so that's my first testimony. That's the first part of my testimony, coming out of lesbianism, coming out of pornography addiction, and masturbation, all those things that are against God. And yeah, I'm here now because God had his hand over my life, and he never took his hand up off of me. And he called me for a time like this. He called me to share this testimony. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that it can help someone out there. I pray that anyone who is going through any type of pornography addiction or dealing with lesbianism, I just really think it's important to look at the root, just to consider where it might have come from, and to know that that's not what God wants for our lives. God does not want us to be addicted to anything. He does not want us to go against nature, to go against what he called us to be with in terms of relationships, which is between man and woman, and not woman and woman, or man and man. So yeah, that is my testimony. And God bless all of you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.